Lebanon's top security officials hold talks with the president after hundreds of people were injured in the worst violence since unrest broke out last October. More protesters killed as Iraqis frustrated with the slow pace of reforms take to the streets. Roads have been blocked and tyres set alight. And accused of ripping off her country, leaked documents reveal how Angola's Isabel dos Santos made her fortune through corruption and exploitation. Those are the headlines. I'm Claire Pride. Thanks for joining us on France 24. Now, a national security meeting has been held in Lebanon after intense clashes between protesters and police. At the weekend, about 400 people were injured as protesters threw fireworks and security forces responded with tear gas and rubber bullets. It was the culmination of what organisers called a week of anger. Lebanon still doesn't have a government, weeks after Hassan Diab became Prime Minister designate, and the economy continues to sink. Now, here's our correspondent in Beirut, Leila Malana Allen.
So we've just heard from this meeting that was held earlier today. It was held by President Michel Aoun, and he also had the Defence Minister, Ali Boussab, and also the Interior Minister, Raya Al-Hassan, who has been getting a lot of ire from protesters because she is in charge of the security forces, the domestic security forces in the country. And it was also attended by the heads of the four main branches of those security services in Lebanon. And they were discussing what's happened over the last few days, this huge escalation of violence that we've seen, street fighting between protesters and the riot police supported by the army, and really protesters saying that they feel the security forces are going to war against them. Now, what's come out of that meeting is really what we've heard before from these authorities, that they support the right of peaceful protesters to stay peaceful as they protest, and they will protect that. However, they need to protect both the opening of the roads, keep the roads open, and also the protection of property, because what we've seen over the last few days is the destruction of lots of banks, people angry about the economic crisis Lebanon's facing, and also the destruction of lots of shops, particularly in the rich downtown Beirut area near Parliament. We saw a lot of rioting and looting this weekend. And what the statement from the authorities says is that they want to differentiate between the bad elements who are coming in and sabotaging the peaceful protests. Now, protesters themselves say that isn't the case. They are the same people who were protesting a few months ago. The difference is now they are so angry. They've launched what they call this week of rage that's been happening. They say they've been trying to keep it peaceful, but thus far that hasn't worked, so they're going to be violent now. And so what we're looking ahead at is a security forces situation where they say they are going to keep reacting in this very violent way towards protesters who do not keep the peace.
Now the latest on the anti-government protests in Iraq. They picked up again on Sunday after protesters gave the government a week to announce reforms. And this Monday has seen more anger on the streets in the capital Baghdad and in the south of the country. At least 2 more protesters have been killed in Baghdad in clashes with security forces. Now protesters are angry about corruption and a lack of jobs. Alison Sargent reports.
They were in the streets before dawn, and the security forces were ready, firing tear gas and live rounds at the young Iraqis, determined to block the capital's main roads and bridges.
We want a response to our demands. Jobs, safety, to feel like real citizens. There are no jobs, no schools, no good education, nothing. When we graduate, we sit at home.
Protesters worry their movement is being forgotten, eclipsed by soaring tension between Iraq's main benefactors, the United States and Iran. Last week, they gave the government until Monday to meet their demands. Early elections under a newly passed electoral law, an independent prime minister to replace Adel Abdelmahdi, who resigned amid protests in November, and accountability for corruption. If the government fails to respond, they vow to escalate their actions, risking a deadly crackdown.
Security forces must stop shooting at us. Look at who we are. Both sides are Iraqi. Why are you killing your brothers?
Since the beginning of the movement in October, over 400 people have been killed and thousands of others injured.
Turning our attention now to a new virus in China that's causing major concern. It's a respiratory illness, a strain of the coronavirus, reviving memories of the SARS virus, also a coronavirus that killed hundreds of people, mostly in Asia, in the early 2000s. So far, this virus has killed at least 3 people and infected more than 200. The authorities reporting a sharp uptick at the weekend. And this Monday, a government expert said the virus is transmitted from human to human. Catherine Viet has more.
Scanners at the train station in Beijing as authorities screen passengers for the coronavirus. Many in the city say they'll wear face masks as a precaution.
I think it should be okay as long as we take personal protection measures. I always bring disposable masks when I go on the subway or crowded places.
Right now they're saying that the cases in Beijing came from Wuhan and then they fell ill, not that Beijing itself is the source of the epidemic. So I don't think it's too serious.
The hospital where the virus first appeared has treated over 60 patients with pneumonia-like symptoms. Chinese authorities say they have the situation under control.
What I can tell you is the Wuhan local government is currently taking measures with outbound travelers.
According to state media, Chinese President Xi Jinping said the recent outbreak must be taken seriously and that party committees, governments, and relevant departments at all levels should put people's lives and health first. The first victims are said to have been infected at this Wuhan fish market, which has since been disinfected, but authorities are fighting a difficult battle. The virus has spread to the north and south of the country, with 139 new cases reported in Beijing and Shenzhen. That takes the total number of people infected over 200, a significant jump from the 62 reported just days ago. The viral outbreak is reminiscent of the 2003 SARS epidemic that killed nearly 800 people and infected over 8,000. And now the virus has spread internationally. So far, cases have been reported in Thailand, Japan, and South Korea. Just a few days before the mass migration starts for the Chinese New Year, those traveling are advised to stay away from animals and sick people and not to eat undercooked meats.
Now, how did Africa's richest woman become Africa's richest woman? Well, according to leaked documents investigated by media across the world, Isabel dos Santos made her fortune through corruption and exploiting her own country, Angola. Isabel dos Santos is the daughter of former president José Eduardo dos Santos, who ruled for almost 4 decades. Camille Nedelec reports.
She is known as the Princess of Luanda. Isabel dos Santos is Africa's richest woman with an estimated fortune of over $2 billion. She's at the helm of an economic and financial empire. The businesswoman is also the daughter of former President José Eduardo dos Santos, who led Angola for almost 40 years. And it was when he was in power that she and her husband had access to lucrative yet suspicious deals. The investigation alleges, for example, that the state oil company Sonangol sold an investment to dos Santos' husband, Sindika Dokolo, for around $12 million, which is now worth over $830 million. And while dos Santos was Sonangol's chair, $115 million of payments to consultancy firms went through a Dubai company controlled by her partners. The corruption scheme extended to real estate as well. And 2 of the businesswoman's companies were going to charge $500 million for a project in Luanda real estate development, before the new president cancelled the project over inflated costs. The Princess of Luanda was quick to deny the accusations on Twitter. These revelations come after the businesswoman's assets were frozen last month by the Angolan government, which estimates that she embezzled over $1 billion, accusations that dos Santos says are politically motivated.
This is really an attempt to influence internal political politics of the MPLA, not allowing for any other voices or any other candidates or any other possible factions within the party to actually rise up and take voice.
Dos Santos is unlikely to have her day in court. She hasn't been in Angola for over a year.
That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.